That's a good one. That's very good.
Oh, we're on video.
Oh, perfect. There's a special guest.
Aunt Sandy and Uncle Norman, my favorite aunts. I grew up in their house with their 4 kids.
Five.
It was only 4 when I was there.
That's right. You're right. You're right. And Leslie was, I think, 18 months old or something when I came
started.
in the family. Right. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We've received a number of proclamations from the City of Los Angeles, the City Council, and from the County of Los Angeles, both made out to the Kesslers and to Mr. Itskovitch. They are beautiful awards that are suitable for framing. Unfortunately, we couldn't get any of the politicians to present the proclamations tonight because they are also home watching the Oscars. But they do look like this. Pretend I'm Zev Yaroslavsky. To Mr. Itskovitch, congratulations. As always, one of the highlights of our banquet is the announcement of the Keter Shem Tov awardee. You will hear about that award in just a moment. However, I must tell you that contest rules of the Keter Shem Tov stipulate that one cannot be eligible for that award if you were previously a contestant on Temptation Island or pardoned by Bill Clinton. Please welcome the fantastic and hardworking president of Young Israel of Century City, my dear friend, Alan Teichman.
The Keter Shem Tov Award is presented to a member who volunteers his or her time in a selfless fashion for the benefit of our shul. The identity of the awardee remains secret until the presentation at the night of the annual dinner. The past recipients of this distinguished honor have been Martin Gottesman of blessed memory in 1988, Menachem Goldberg, 1989, Jakob Glasser, 1990, you can clap if you want, Wendy Platt, 1991, Richard Seeger, 1992, Daniel Arnall, 1993, Marty Pollack, 1994, Rabbi Fred Fisher of blessed memory, 1995, Dorit Teichman, 1996, Marsha Wasserman, 1997, Sherry Schlesinger, 1998, Rebecca Jalali, 1999, and last year in the year 2000, a couple, great couple, Dr. George and Grace Fox. Tonight, we proudly announce our 14th mystery recipient. Our Keter Shem Tov awardee was born at a very young age, with a smile that can melt anyone's heart. This proved to save the day time and time again throughout this person's life travails. This, of course, doesn't diminish from a distinctive hairstyle that as a child was on display for all to see. Let's see if anybody can guess this as we go along. Born to a distinguished family, involvement in shul life was part and parcel in our awardee's upbringing. But what makes our awardee's youth somewhat unusual was that this person received a Christmas present from a priest. I think he just got it. Kids occupy a special place in our awardee's heart, always willing to set an example. Our awardee taught in afternoon and Sunday schools, influencing both family and children with a love of Judaism. This person was so successful that enrollment in one local school jumped from just a handful of students to 150 in a very short time. Zionism runs deep in our awardees' blood. Events, trips, and committees were organized so the kids and grown-ups would gain a love of Medinat Yisrael and a desire to make Aliyah to Israel. Our awardee, in fact, spent time living in Israel and helping out during wartime. Our awardee has a deep passion for music, which includes both Hebrew and classical styles. By adapting these melodies to sacred text, our awardee has inspired numerous young people to sing with all their hearts and to prompt adults to ask, hey, what tune is that? You all know the saying, a yeke bleibt a yeke, which roughly means once a yeke, always a yeke. Born in Hamburg, Germany, our awardee is always impeccably dressed, totally organized, and always on time. Living a life full of mitzvot, our awardee has touched people from youth to the elderly. Even our shul's Chevra Kadisha benefits from his leadership as its chairman. But the greatest passion our awardee displays isn't, believe it or not, for his BMW Z3. Rather, it is reserved for his lovely wife, his 4 beautiful daughters, and all of his grandchildren, who are the light of his life. Without further ado, please join me in saluting our very special Keter Shem Tov awardee for 5761, 2001, our very own Gabbai Rishon, Uri Hirsch. Please come up.
The Keter Shem Tov Award reads as follows. Keter Shem Tov, Young Israel of Century City Keter Shem Tov Award presented to Uri Hirsch in recognition and appreciation for his untiring efforts, commitment, and leadership. March 25th, 2001, the 1st of Nisan, 5761. Mazel Tov.
At this time, by way of the 21st century technology, we have a satellite feed direct from Pretoria, South Africa. Please give your attention to the video screen for a message from the Minister of the Interior of South Africa.
Geachte Dr. Kessler, dear Dr. Kessler, I am the Honorable Frans Pochempoel. I am the South African Minister of the Interior, and I have received information that your local synagogue is honoring you and your vrouw, by which I mean your wife. Not only are they honoring you, they are honoring you at a banquet. In South Africa, a banquet is a meal with silverware. For what reason they are honoring you, I vrachtig cannot understand. For after all, after training you as a doctor, you left your country and went to that crazy place, America. Yeah. Here in South Africa, we think of you as a traitor. We have worked out that your medical training cost the taxpayers here R1 million, not counting the money we had to spend to stop those 6 women from talking. You want a certificate from the Prime Minister of South Africa to be handed to you at the banquet, along with a certificate from your current president, Mr. Ronald Reagan. You will have to pay us back the R1 million you owe us. Our Minister of Finance has worked out on his fingers that R1 million is $6.98. Your prompt attention to this matter is much appreciated. Another thing that is bothering us is that your wife, Leslie, is being honored too. Now down here, we do not recognize your marriage, of course, because you did not register with the Minister of Marriages here in Pretoria. The registration fee is R4.20, and you will have to fill in form 659-4203W. I repeat, form number 718-7810J in triplicate. That means 2 pieces of carbon paper, yeah? If you want the certificate to congratulate both of you, we will need the R4.20 and the aforementioned paper no later than March 28, 2001. Of course, on that day, our office will be closed in honor of the birthday of Jan van Rensburg, the brother-in-law of the founder of South Africa. So we recommend that if you take your time and hurry up, the form should reach us by the 26th of March. Prachtig. I don't know how you're going to do that, because today is already Monday morning, the 26th of March, and all our staff are already watching the Academy Awards on the satellite from Hollywood, and no one is doing any work. So, Dr. Kessler, please try to comply with our wishes. And next time, don't be such a traitor. And also, tell your mom, Mrs. Lily Kessler, that she left her porch light on when she left South Africa. And we want to know if we can turn it off now. With warm greetings, I remain the Honorable Frans Pochenpoel, Minister of Information.
As I began preparing my remarks for this evening in honor of Mr. Itskovitch, I had a flashback in my own history with Young Israel of Century City. We were selected to be Rabbi and Rebbitzin, Ruchama and I, in August 1985. We came in November 1985 to visit and to find a house to meet the leadership of the community and the shul. They wined and dined us that entire week that we were here. And they told us one lunch is going to be very special for you. You're going to be treated like royalty at the kosher pizza shop on Pico.
Mr. Itskovitch, I know you and Mrs. Itskovitch have been greatly looking forward to this dinner, and the shul truly loves you, but could you tell us a little bit about where you come from and what it was like growing up?
The parents' names is Leib Yosef Itskovitch. Mother is Hani. I have 6 brothers and 3 sisters.
Did you come from a religious family?
Yes. My father was a Vizhnitzer Chuset. And we davened there in a Vizhnitzer Medrash. And I say for the boss there in the yeshiva, I say, if you want, I can do it. I'm 13 years old, but I will organize, I say, Moes here, you will see. But I say, you give me about 20 people from the Bahiram. and I organized them on 2 places there. 10 on this side, then on this side, because I organized that there. And I just, with my hand, start. And I organized these 20 people for this Moesir. For the war, I was about 22 years. When the ghetto, they come one time in the morning with guns, SS, and they say, out, 2,000 in the wagon. Start. She was also in this wagon, my wife.
Mrs. Itskovitch was with you. Were
Yeah,
you married
yeah.
at the time?
Now, for that, I daven every morning. On the way, when we go. You know,
Every morning that you were in
every
the
morning.
camps, you daven.
I pray to God every day, what will be the end? What will be the end? And Ebensee was the last camp. Was the 5th camp where I were. I was so weak. I say, if you go and you will see the American soldiers there, bring me also, they say they bring soup. They call it American soup.
From your family, how many survived the camps?
From my family, 2. Me and my brother.
After the war, how did you find your brother?
My brother. I stay in the line. I look on the back and I think about from here in a street. Like this is my brother. With my voice I say, Kessler, because and he looked back from there. And my hand, I just show. He came right away to me. I say, you here? I say, yeah.
Was Munkach very different after the war?
After the war, it wasn't too many Jewish people.
Was your home
because
still
they
there?
killed. My home was there.
This was already
Itskovitch
there.
was already there. And I have an uncle also. He was in the same apartment.
How soon after you got back to Munkach did you meet Mrs. Itskovitch?
I missed her right away when I came home.
And how soon afterwards did you get married?
Yeah, this was in 4 years.
Could you tell me who the man who looks like Humphrey Bogart is?
I don't know.
Does Mr. Itskovitch remind any of you of Humphrey Bogart?
He's so good looking. My wife just goes mad about Mr. Itskovitch. It's unbelievable. I really think he should win an Oscar. Yes.
He did Humphrey Bogart's voiceover in Casablanca when he said, "Play it again, Sam."
At that time I was in better shape. You see that how
What
I look.
year was this photo taken of?
49.
49. And this lady who is more beautiful than Ingmar Bergman.
She was young. She was 18-year-old.
This is Mrs. Itskovitch.
Mrs. Itskovitch, yeah.
When you got back to Munkach, were there any shuls?
From 30 shuls, they allow 1 shul. It holds the 1 shul a year. After a year, from the Communist Party, they say, close it.
Where did you daven?
And we daven in apartments where the people live. And from the KGB come a captain. I say, nothing is here. What is here? You the rabbi. On me. You the rabbi. Why is he the rabbi? Because Friday night, just the talis, the chazner.
So you gave Kiddush to the KGB
Kiddush to
man.
the KGB man.
Was
And
this-
he go.
Was this the first Kiddush or the second Kiddush?
The first Kiddush.
The first Kiddush Rishon.
Yeah, we have there a rabbi. His name was Yosef Mordechai Kahan. Wait, and in a year they give him the permit to go. So I took over.
You once told me that if you've been in Auschwitz, you don't need smicha. What did you mean by that?
don't, I don't, I don't have smicha there also not, but I know how to write the ksuba and how to make the, you know. I was older than before. Before I was 13 years old, but that time I was 18 years old.
When did the Russians finally let you leave?
I asked to go, and they doesn't allow me to go. I say I am working 27 years, and I have a brother. I didn't see him 35 years. This is the Moifes from the Ribbenitzer Rebbe. I can tell you. And I would like to have a bracha from him. I ask, where you will want to go? Or to Israel or to America? He say, you will go just of America. And he say, everything will be okay.
You came to the United States in 1973.
Yeah, Nixon was the president that time.
When you got to New York, you met with a Munkacher Rebbe?
Yeah.
Please rise, the room is here.
But finally, we'll get the scoop on Mr. Itskovitch.
Is it going to cost us any money?
Did you tell him you wanted to go to Los Angeles?
Yeah, I told him.
And what did he tell you?
He tells, don't go, I give you a good job here. I say, I cannot because I have there a brother. I didn't see him a long time.
So what do the Munkachers say
so the
to you about Los Angeles?
This is not so good. This is that time, you know, it wasn't so kosher. So I didn't listen to him, and I came.
You came to Los Angeles.
Los Angeles.
Now you were a chazan on the other side of town before you came to Young Israel Central City?
Yeah. I was the chazan by Rabbi Gruman.
Was he a good chazan?
Ooh, he did the longest Kol Nidre in the history.
But they paid me for chazunas, and I was a chazan there about 7 or 8 years because we lived there other side of town. And when we live here, and I opened a pizza restaurant, so I find out that there is a Young Israel Century City. So I came here too, and I like it.
What do you think of Rabbi Muskin?
Rabbi Muskin is very, very nice person.
The real question is, who really runs the show? Is it Mr. Itskovitch or Rabbi Muskin?
I worked there about 3 months, and they make me the boss there.
Mr. Itskovitch actually writes all of the rabbi's speeches. Not many people know that.
So is it true that Mr. Itskovitch then travels to all these exotic places, including Atlanta, Poland, and etc.?
Absolutely. He's what we call a Renaissance man, a true Renaissance man. He does everything.
Between all rabbis, what is here in Los Angeles, I think he is on the first place. And everybody likes him.
Your minyan, the first minyan at Young Israel Century City, is always very quiet.
Yeah.
Could you give any advice to Rabbi Muskin to help him make the second minyan just as quiet?
Stop talking.
Keeping quiet, there's no noise at Young Israel Century City. Not on my side of the shul.
And people
they listen. They say, Itskovitch, he say what we have to, that's it.
Any advice for
I'm not the rabbi, but they hold me for the rabbi.
The first minyan, the early minyan, moves very quickly.
Yeah.
Much more quickly than the main minyan on Shabbos. Could you tell Rabbi Muskin any advice as to how you...
Or to start earlier?
Yes.
I cannot, Rabbi Muskin, he will not agree.
If there are 2 people in shul, and one person comes from a family from Munkach, and another person in the shul doesn't have a family that comes from Munkach, who gets the aliyah?
You see, if he is a guest from Munkach, I think I gave him an aliyah.
You are famous for clapping.
Clapping, yeah. Yeah.
Clapping.
Yeah.
Where does the clapping come from?
The clapping, I was in New York, and there is a rabbi.
He has to learn how to clap.
They wait, and he clapped that their husband can go.
So that's where you learned it
That's
from?
what I learned.
Mincha today at 5:50. Tomorrow morning Shacharis, that's coming minyan at 6:15.
Would you all like to give Mr. Itskovitch a bracha on receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award and on celebrating his upcoming 80th birthday?
Mr. Itskovitch is a wonderful human being. He's a Talmid Chacham. He's a Tehillim Zuger, which means he says Tehillim every day, all of Tehillim. He's really a great role model for all of us. And it's amazing how in a few short years in the United States, his accent's totally disappeared. He speaks just like an American. So we really love him and we wish him Ad Mea Ve'esrim, Mazel Tov.
Amen. He's truly a very, very nice man. I remember meeting him when I was saying Kaddish for my father, and he was my friend at that time. That goes back 14, 15 years ago. Really a good guy, and I wish him well, and he really deserves this honor.
Mr. Itskovitch really is a true tzaddik in every sense of the word. He's probably one of the greatest men I've ever met. He's very friendly. He's a very loving man. He treats his friends well, and I honestly don't think anybody could ever do a better job than he does. Mazal Tov, Mr. Itskovitch.
From bringing Orthodox pizza to Los Angeles, to this side of town, and for running this minyan with as tight a fist as he does, and having the neshama that he does, I wish him 120 year pinked.
Mr. Itskovitch, you should have harichas yamim with your lovely Eshes Chayil, with your children and your grandchildren. You're a very special man, and we all love you very dearly.
I have to thank for the honor they give me such an honor, and I didn't know that this can happen. So I'm going in the 80 years. In Hashem Yisborach, I will good health for you and for everyone, and for the kol hakol. A good year for everything. Thank you. You see, you also here.
Closer, you're married.
You want me to sing? No.
Not today.
Okay then.
Okay, so it's late. Good night. Thank you very much.
Good night.
Pizza Nash. We promise you'll be the only people in the restaurant. The Kachavi. We arrived for lunch. Mr. and Mrs. Itskovitch welcomed us, gave us a wonderful lunch. The telephone rang. Mr. Itskovitch gets up, he excuses himself, he goes to answer the phone. He says, yes, this is Mr. Itskovitch. No, I don't have any time. There's a rabbi and a rebbetzin in here. And you hear only his side. So you hear, no, it's not the Munkacher, it's the Muskin. Obviously, that person didn't know anything about me. So he said to him, obviously, because I hear the other side, he says, who's Muskin? He says, he's the new rabbi at Young Israel Century City. He's my rabbi. Mr. Itskovitch and I have a very special relationship, as you saw. It's one of tremendous love. And this evening, I want to share with you the secret. What makes Mr. Itskovitch so beloved? I'm a young Rav. He could be my grandfather. And in many ways, he is. A grandfather I never knew. You see, Mr. Itskovitch, I want to share with you a Devar Torah that will explain for everybody here your secret of life. There's a passage in the Chumash that seems totally out of place. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Almighty Himself, is now strategizing with Moses and Aaron how to convince Pharaoh to let our Jewish people leave Egypt. As the Bible, as the Torah describes that moment, tremendous strategy, political discussion, the highest level. Suddenly, the Torah interrupts with the following verse. Umoshe ben shmonim shana, v'Aharon ben shalosh u'shmonim shana, b'dabrom el paro. And Moshe was 80 years old, and Aaron, his brother, was 83 when they went to speak to Pharaoh. In the middle of a discussion with the Almighty, the Torah tells us that we have old men leading us, an 80 and an 83-year-old. And this was not lost on the great 12th century Spanish thinker, the Avram Ibn Ezra, the great commentator on the Bible, and he says the following. He says, "V'lo matzanu b'chol hamikra." We don't find in the entire scriptures, from beginning to end, prophets anywhere else mentioned in the Bible for whom the text points out that they prophesied while they were elderly. Only Moshe and Aharon, are we told their age, and they're so old when they prophesied to the people. So why? And the Ibn Ezra answers, Kila Eile, because these two men, Livadam, only they, Nitna HaTorah, was the Torah given through them. The Ibn Ezra, ladies and gentlemen, is teaching us a very important lesson. You see, when it comes to Torah, when it comes to wisdom, when it comes to education, in the Jewish people, we don't believe it's limited to one age. There's no limits when it comes to Torah learning. Actually, we believe that the older you are, the more you can learn from that person. The Zakein Zeh Shekana Chachma, the older one, he's the one that has wisdom. Anybody who's ever talked to Mr. Itskovitch and listened to his stories of Munkach, listens to his stories of how he survived the hell of Hitler and then of Stalin and the communists. We can't learn Torah from a man who has a number and puts on tefillin on that same hand. We can learn a lot of Torah. So in shul, I honestly turn to Mr. Itskovitch, and I ask him privately and quite often, so tell me, was this the custom? Was this the minig in Munkach? I'm not a chassid, I'm not a son of a chassid. I'm a Litvak. But I want to know the Torah of Munkach, of the Minchas Elazar, of the Vishnitz Shtiebel. I want to hear about it. Is this the way it was done, or is that the way it was done? I want to share with you a story I know, and I don't think many of you in this room do know. A number of years ago, Mr. and Mrs. Itskovitch went to Eretz Yisrael for Sukkot. When they returned, Mr. Itskovitch was just like Moshe Rabbeinu. He had glory, a halo above him. He was radiating with a halo of happiness. So I sat down and I said, Mr. Itskovitch, tell me, what was the highlight of the trip? He says, we went to Bnei Brak. We went to the Vishnitz Beis Medrash. Vishnitz is a big Hasidic dynasty today. And we went to the Vishnitz Beis Medrash. And there I began to sing the Nusach HaTfilah, the way the prayers were sung in Munkach. And the Rebbe turned and said, who is that man? He's not dressed like a chassid. He doesn't have a bekisha shtreimel. Who is this man who still breathes the air of Munkach, who knows the nusach like nobody else? And he waved to Mr. Itskovitch. And the rest of Yontiv, Mr. Itskovitch, was the honored guest of the Vishnitzer Rebbe. But I'm not only talking about the past. Just 3 weeks ago, a gentleman from England came to visit our shul. He comes over to me after Minyan Mincha Ma'ariv and he says to me privately, everybody's gone, Mr. Itskovitch already had left. And he says, I understand you're honoring Mr. Itskovitch. I said, yes. He says, you know, I come every once in a while from England. I'm going to join your shul because of Mr. Itskovitch. Because Mr. Itskovitch welcomes me. He makes me feel like I'm in the presence of a history long gone. But it's not long gone. Because we are Zoche, we have the merit of being able to have a Mr. Itskovitch daven for us on the Yomim Noraim, Shachris and Mincha and Yom HaKippurim. We have him as our Gabbai who runs the first minyan, and I have him as a very personal friend. And Mr. Itskovitch, the Rambam says a chaver, a friend who you can talk Torah with, is the greatest gift that man can have. And I want to tell you that our friendship is the greatest gift I can have, and I thank you for that. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask our President, Alan Teichman, our Chairman of the Board, Donald Etra, to come forward to help me make the presentation to Mr. Itskovitch.
Mr. Itskovitch, if you can please come forward. In deciding what appropriate gift to give Mr. Itskovitch upon receiving our Lifetime Achievement Award, we decided that it must represent his personal talents and his unique personality. From his youth in Munkach to this very day, Mr. Itskovitch's love for Chazanut, of cantorial music, has played a dominant role in his life.
We have therefore chosen a Pesumin box, the spice box used in the Havdalah ceremony on Saturday night, shaped as a harp, to be our gift of appreciation. According to tradition, King David, the greatest of all composers of liturgical music, played the harp as he sang praise to the Almighty and wrote the book of Tehillim, Psalms.
It is our collective wish that Mr. Itskovitch will be blessed with many years of good health and that he will have the strength to sing Chazanut for many, many years to come.
The inscription on the gift reads, Young Israel of Century City Lifetime Achievement Award, presented to Mr. Nandor Itskovitch, March 25th, 2001, the first day of Nisan, 5761. Elazar Muskin, Rabbi, Alan Teichman, President, Barbara Walters, Chairman of the Board.
Mr. Itskovitch did not prepare remarks, but he's going to share with us some feelings.
I would like to thank to the rabbi and to the president. They did a lot of things there in our shul. Rabbi Maskin forgot when he got to be the rabbi here. So he forgot that we could make their minyan. So what Itskovitch go on the street and standing because he's missing 2 people to the minyan. So Rabbi Maskin come also and help me too. So finally we find one person and other person. And it was very hard to make a minyan there. Now, Baruch Hashem, Rabbi Maskin is the best rabbi in town. And we doesn't have to go on the street and find 2 people because we have there about 300 people. So I would like to thank Rabbi Maskin for everything and for the also for the president here, and I hope that everybody will have a good life, and I wish for everyone good health also, and a good year. I hear from a rabbi that told me that, you know, if you have here what is what the SS give me, he say you can do for the people very good. If somebody is sick, you can give him a good health. So I hope that I will wish for everyone here a good health and a good life. That's all what I want to say.
Fantastic. Really wonderful. 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 Beautiful.
Mazel tov, Mr. Itskovitch. What a beautiful tribute.
Rabbi Muskin, honored rabbis, ladies, and gentlemen. As I began to internalize that these are my last months living at home, I seem to be much more intrigued by my everyday life and surroundings. I've been paying special attention to my parents, my mother as she coordinates 6 lives, and my father as he sustains them, appreciating their idiosyncrasies, but mostly hoping to realize the values with which they live their life and attempting to integrate those ideals into my existence. Over the past few months, I've come to one main realization. There is no way on earth I'll ever be able to repay my parents for what they've done for me. I can't quite fathom the entity that equates with 17 years of love, leadership, and devotion. But when faced with the task of writing a speech, the answer fell from the Gemara right into my lap. Without going into great detail, I'd like to share with you the highlights of my lesson. In Masechet Kedushin, the Gemara discusses a father's obligation to teach his son Torah, and is faced with 2 seemingly conflicting halachot. The Gemara first concludes that a grandfather has an obligation to teach Torah to his grandson. But then, the Gemara realizes that the root of all such halakha says that the only obligation is for a father and not a grandfather to teach his son Torah. So, why does the Gemara then initially conclude that the grandfather has this obligation? The Gemara finds reconciliation in the pasuk, "V'hodatam levanecha v'livnei banecha," and you shall make them known to your son and your grandsons. The pasuk is referring to the Torah in itself and conveys an obligation for the Torah to be passed down through the generations. The Torah places this obligation in both the hands of the father and the grandfather. If a father is unable to teach his son Torah, then the grandfather is obligated to step in. But the ultimate goal is not that particular child learning Torah, but the certainty that the Torah itself will be passed down through the generations. Every new generation is just another link in the chain. Children build on their parents' mitzvah of teaching them Torah by then teaching their own children. Mommy and Daddy, there is no way that Yael, E, and Jeffrey or I could ever return the unbelievable favor that you have done for us by guiding us in the path of Torah life. But we can promise you one thing. We will try our hardest to pass on the Torah values that you have instilled in us. And, in line with this banquet, you have taught us what it means to be true leaders of a Jewish community. With such fine examples, we will strive to continue your legacy by raising new leaders of our own. Thank you.
Mommy and Daddy, we love you.
At the shir at Rabbi Leffen's shul. Now, Rabbi Leffen's father was a friend of my parents of Hashem. So when he found out that Leslie and Joe were courting, he wrote us a letter, and he said that he was very impressed with them.
But I would like to take this opportunity to let everyone know what I have felt quietly in my heart all these years, that I'm blessed to have children, that are so dedicated, who devote so much time and effort to what they believe in, and try to make a difference in the world rather than just pay lip service to lofty thoughts. I will never forget this night and the honor that has been bestowed on Leslie and Joel. It is truly a highlight of my life, and I thank you.
Mommy, even though you embarrass me sometimes, I still love you.
Yeah, Mommy and Daddy, we all love you.
We love you, Mommy and Daddy.
Our Rav has taught us to be involved in the community at large, not just to look out for what is good for young Israel of Century City, but to look out for what is best for the community that we are a part of, to care about others and their feelings and not just our own. He has taught us not just to make Shabbos for ourselves, so to speak, but to make a positive impact on others outside our community, to Jews on the right, to Jews on the left, and to non-Jews as well. His tremendous involvement in the community, his caring for the poor, the sick, the widows, and the orphans are all shining examples of the path in which each and every one of us must follow. His leadership in the shul, in every aspect of our congregation, whether administration, public relations, programming, and fundraising, has made our shul one that is the envy of congregations locally and nationwide. His dedication to his Rabbanit and family, despite the numerous commitments he has, is a pleasure to behold. And most of all, he is a friend to each and every one of us. He cares about each and every one of us. Our community is truly blessed. To present this year's Tribute Award, it is my pleasure and my honor to present our Mora de Asra, Rabbi Elazar Muskin.
Would you please join me in thanking Dr. Mark Goldenberg for a wonderful evening. Joe, Leslie, my first lesson this evening that I learned is choose your neighbors very carefully. Bob, a big yashikayach. Ladies and gentlemen, one more hand for Bob Korda. Humor, observed the sociologist Peter Berger, is a signal of transcendence. If that is correct, then I think it would be accurate to say that tonight we've experienced the ultimate in transcendence. At Young Israel of Century City banquets, nothing is sacred, not even the rabbi's sermon. Nothing is sacred, and it's all done in good humor. Tonight we're here because we adore Joel and Leslie. Just look around and you'll understand what I mean. As I reviewed in my mind Dr. Kessler's tenure, his excellent tenure as president of our shul, I remember one incident in particular. It was an early morning call from Dr. Kessler. It actually happened during the 10 days of repentance between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Dr. Kessler had attended Mr. Itskovitch's first minyan. What had occurred, I attend usually the second minyan. What had occurred at that minyan was literally pandemonium broke out between the Balabatim. They didn't know what to do, where to place the chapter of Psalm, the Perek of Tehillim, Shir Hamalos Mimamakim in the davening. You see, some screamed that it belongs between Yishtabach and Baruch Hu. Others screamed, no, that it belongs before Yishtabach. Dr. Kessler called when he returned home and said, Rabbi, please tell me which is the custom. And the following conversation ensued. He said, Rabbi, is it true that true Jewish tradition and custom dictates that you place Shir HaMalos between Yishtabach and Baruch Hu? I responded, not really. True tradition? I can't say that is correct. He says, therefore it must be, Rabbi, correct that true tradition places it before Yishtabach? I said, not really. I can't declare that that is written in stone. And I heard Dr. Kessler becoming a bit nervous and frustrated. And he's thinking out loud and he says, Rabbi, if neither of the customs is correct, so which is correct? And I said, well, what happened this morning? And he said, each side started screaming at the other. And I said, you see, Dr. Kessler, that's tradition. Jewish tradition, and we chuckle at it. But the truth is that the story tells us much more about Dr. Kessler than anyone else, because he was interested in peace. And if you know anything about Joel and Leslie, you know that they are motivated by shalom, by caring for their fellow man. Let me describe what I mean via an insight from the Torah that we just finished reading, the second book of the Torah, Chumash Shemos, Exodus. The most important appurtenance in the entire tabernacle was, of course, the Holy Ark, the Aron HaKodesh, in which lied the Aseret HaDibrot, the Ten Commandments. Fascinating. Let's look at what the Torah, the Bible, tells us about the construction, the material used for that most holy object, the Ark. The Torah tells us, "V'tzipita oto zahav tahor mibayis umichutz titzapenu." The outer box was made of gold. The inner box was made of gold, but the middle box was made of wood. The outer and the inner were made of gold, but the inner box that held the luchos, that held the Ten Commandments themselves, it was made out of wood. The medieval commentator, the Das Sakenu Balei Tosfos, asks a most daring question. He asks, I don't understand. If this is the most holiest of objects in the tabernacle in Jewish life, then shouldn't it have all been made out of gold, the most precious of all metals? Why would you go to a much less expensive material called wood? And the Das Sakenu Balei Tosfos gives us an insight that we should never forget. He notes that if it would have been made out of gold, we were wandering in the desert, ladies and gentlemen. Somebody had to carry that ark. It would have been heavier if it was made out of gold. And at the expense of making somebody carry something heavy, you put aside God's glory. The Das Sakenu Balei Tosfos tell us, in a simple insight, don't be overzealous for God when it hurts your fellow man. What an insight, what a lesson it really is. Don't we all remember, as we're about ready to celebrate the holiday of Pesach, the story of the 19th century great Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, the founder of the ethical movement, the Musar movement, who on the Pesach before he died was asked the following question by his students. They said, Mentor Rebbe, Rabbi, please tell us, what should we pay attention to when we bake our matzot? What strictures should we follow? And they thought maybe he would tell them, well, it has to be baked in so many minutes, and you have to make sure there's no water near there, etc., etc., etc. But Rabbi Yisrael said no. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter said, there's a widow who washes the floors in the matzah factory. Make sure that nobody dares speak loudly to her, and at the end of the day, she leaves with a smile. When it comes to our religion, the most important lesson is don't be overzealous for God when man is at stake. Put in other words, having faith in God means caring for your fellow man. And the measure of our righteousness lies in how many people we value, not in how many people we condemn. Leslie and Joel appreciate this lesson innately. The proof is clear to me. We wanted to include in the journal that you all have some beautiful messages from their children. The Kessler children wrote the tribute on their own, and this is what they chose. They chose a passage from the Book of Ethics of our Fathers. You'll see it in your books. Chose from Avos, Perek Aleph, Mishnah Hey. It says the following, describing their parents, and children are very honest. Yeah, Veischa patuach l'ravacha, v'yu aniyim b'nei beitecha. Let your house be open wide, and let the needy be members of your household. When the 4 Kessler children wanted to describe what they felt about mom and dad, they said, hey, our mom and dad represent real piety, concerned about their fellow man, all men. It doesn't matter who we are. Look around in this room. So many of us come from so many different walks in life. So many of us have different philosophies and different theologies. But yet we're all here because of one couple. One couple who's opened up their hearts to all of us. And that's why we're here tonight. Both Joel and Leslie have earned the love and the admiration of a community because they care for others. Professionally, they've achieved the highest of marks. Not because they were well trained, that's true, they were well trained, but their peers will admit that they care genuinely about their patients. I've also witnessed how Joel and Leslie both care for their mothers, both mothers, Mrs. Kramer and Mrs. Kessler. Watch on a Shabbos morning how Joel and Leslie and the grandchildren walk home a grandmother from shul, and then you'll know what I mean. It's caring, it's being pious in the true sense of the word. And finally, I have felt the privilege of not only being able to be called Joel and Leslie's rabbi, but also their personal friend. To be a personal friend, it means as follows. Let me describe to you what I'm talking about. I called Joel and Leslie back in November. I said, can I come over? I need to speak to you. Joel and Leslie did not have any idea what I wanted. Joel said, Rabbi, when do you like to come over? Certainly, you want to speak to us? By all means. And we set the date, and I came. You see, you never tell the potential honoree why you're coming. That is deadly. Rather, you sneak up on them. And you never come alone. Rather, you come with a delegation. And they're never knowing who's going to be at the other side of the door. They expected a rabbi. They got a president and a past president joining with me. Alan Teichman and Dr. Mark Goldenberg joined me. And Joel sits there and says, what do you want from me? And we said, we want you to do something that you really don't want to do. We want you to be honorees at our dinner. They didn't want to accept, but they said yes. They said yes because of a friendship. They said yes because the shul needed them. And for that reason, we're here tonight to say thank you. Thank you for showing us the way. When people need Joel and Leslie are there for them. That's what friendship is all about. That's what our religion is all about. That's what true piety is all about. It is therefore my honor to collectively say thank you to Dr. Joel and Leslie, and to wish them much mazel and much bracha, much blessing, much good luck and good fortune in the years to come. It's my pleasure now to call upon the following to help me make the presentation, the tribute award to Joel and Leslie. Esther and Stephen Fetter, Leslie and Brian Kleiman, Rosina and Bob Korda, and Miriam and David Lebo, would you please come forward?
On this special evening, as we publicly salute Joel and Leslie for all their efforts on behalf of our shul and community, we felt that our presentation should reflect our gratitude for everything that they have accomplished.
In Jewish tradition, one of the beautiful moments is lighting the menorah on Hanukkah. The menorah has always symbolized the ability of our people to illuminate even in a world filled with darkness. The menorah has also stood for the light of education and the desire to make our world a better place for all humanity. As the verse states, Ki ner mitzvah v'Torah, or the candle is compared to mitzvah and the light to Torah.
We have therefore chosen as our gift
a beautiful silver menorah representing our appreciation for all of the light and good cheer that Joel and Leslie have shared with all of us. It is our blessing that they continue to enhance our community with their creativity and that they be blessed to enjoy many wonderful smachot with their lovely family.
The inscription on the gift reads, Young Israel of Century City, Tribute Award, presented to Dr. Joel and Leslie Kessler, March 25, 2001, 1 Nisan 5761, Elazar R. Muskin, Rabbi, Alan Teichman, President.
Rabbi Muskin, honored rabbis, family and friends, thank you all for coming here this evening to celebrate our shul's 25th annual tribute banquet. Being honored presented us with many challenges, one of which was to write a speech which would be not too long or too boring and do justice to this great honor. When faced with what to say, we began with the usual, the weekly parsha, and as always, there was a pertinent topic. Yesterday, the Torah reading went into great detail about the building of the Mishkan, the mobile, transportable dwelling of the Ten Commandments. From this concept, we can infer that we carry our Judaism with us wherever we may be. As modern Orthodox Jews, wherever we work or travel to, we are able to remain true to our Torah values. So often, we hear mutterings as Rabbi Muskin begins his weekly drashah with a story related to one of his recent travels. As unbelievable as the details may or seem to be, the underlying message is very important and vital to all of us. And that is, we are able and expected to integrate our Torah values into all aspects of our lives, wherever we may find ourselves by choice or necessity. The emphasis is that the Mishkan was a portable place of worship, which served as a focal point while Bnei Israel were wandering in the desert. So too, Torah study and values learned by me halfway across the world were portable and allowed me to feel very comfortable davening at Young Israel of Century City. Little did I know that 25 years ago, when I was making my decision to leave Johannesburg, South Africa, a little minyan known as YICC was just being formed some 10,000 miles away, leaving the country where my parents had been born and where both my maternal and paternal grandparents had come to escape Tsarist Russia was difficult, and I was filled with apprehension. Arriving in South Africa at the turn of the 20th century, both sets of my grandparents became founding members and stalwarts of their community congregations and local Jewish institutions. The tradition started by them was continued by my dear parents, Dr. Israel Kessler of blessed memory, and my mother, Lily Kessler, who is here tonight with us. My family had established deep roots in South Africa in a very short time, and now it was my turn to come to a new country and start a new life. But at least I spoke the same language, sort of. Following 2 years of residency at the University of Colorado in Denver, I then made my way west, where I was to meet my Eshet Chayal on the boardwalk of Venice Beach, and that's the truth.
Unbeknownst to Joel, who was working day and night in Colorado General Hospital, I had by chance become involved with a growing and exciting shul on Venice Beach under the spiritual guidance of 2 ex-South African rabbis. There, modern orthodoxy became my lifestyle. In addition, I became familiar with such terms as shame and just now to prepare me for my future. In this community, we met, were married, and had our first child, who was 3 months old when we moved into Beverlywood and joined Young Israel of Century City. We were excited and apprehensive. What would replace watching the sunset on the boardwalk between Kabbalat Shabbat and Mariv? What would it be like to toivel our dishes in a mikveh instead of in the ocean? And no more sukkahs overlooking the Pacific Ocean. What adventures would our new community hold for us? We were moving away from friends with whom we had shared both exciting adventures and tremendous spiritual growth. We have never been disappointed. This community has become part of our extended family. We have davened, fasted, and celebrated together. With you, we have shared the birth of 3 children, 2 bat mitzvahs, and the passing of my dear father, Eugene Kramer, of blessed memory. You have shared our good and bad times with us, and we with you. You have been generous to us in times of need and in times of excitement. We love this community, and it is an honor to be here to help support modern orthodoxy and the voice of moderation in an increasingly intolerant world. In addition, Young Israel of Century City beautifully illustrates the uniquely Jewish concept of community presented to us in the Torah. Judaism was the first religion to present the premise that we can only reach a higher spiritual level if we are concerned with others. This community has developed, under the guidance of Rabbi Muskin, into a cohesive, caring unit that allows us to actualize this truth. As has been mentioned, we both have vivid childhood memories of our parents busily engaging themselves in the affairs of the community. At the time that Joel's grandparents were establishing roots in South Africa, both sets of my grandparents were becoming part of the first Jewish community in Los Angeles at the Breed Street Shul in Boyle Heights. There, my parents were instilled with Jewish values and morals and successfully passed these on to me. As both sets of our parents have been people who give of themselves, it was only natural for us to become involved in shul affairs.
Being involved with Young Israel of Century City has been both fulfilling and enjoyable. Since we first became members in 1984, some things have changed a lot, many have not. What has not changed? Mark Goldenberg, standing up in shul for 4 weeks prior to the annual banquet, poking fun at the honorees. Rabbi Muskin telling us at the end of Musaf that there are 2 more Kadishim, and would we please all be quiet and answer appropriately. Larry Platt telling the Gabayim how things should be done faster and better. What has changed? Our membership has grown from 50 family units to 310 family units today. We have gone from occasional Kiddushim celebrating Smachot to Kiddush Rishon and Kiddush Sheni every Shabbat. Today we have a beautiful youth wing and social hall in addition to the beautiful sanctuary. And one aspect of our shul that has definitely remained constant throughout the 17 years of our association with it is the love, caring, and devotion of all of our friends. As Leslie mentioned earlier, you have shared our smachot with great enthusiasm and joy, and Leslie's father's passing with the utmost devotion and support. Finally, the warmth and love with which you have welcomed my mom into our community since her arrival from South Africa 6 years ago has been unbelievable, and for this I thank you from the bottom of my heart. In closing, we want to thank all of you who have come to be with us here this evening. We are very thankful to Hashem that our mothers, Mildred Kramer and Lily Kessler, are able to be here with us. We give a special thanks to my brother and sister-in-law who came all the way from New York, as well as Leslie's brother who came from Las Vegas. We also wish to thank our special friend Eli, who watched sunsets with us on the Venice Boardwalk and came all the way from New York. Bob Corder and his collaborating crew should be at least acknowledged for their time and hard work.
Maybe
really,
we should thank them.
We are going to thank you, Bob, because you terrorized us into thinking us that it was going to be far more critical.
We weren't sure whether we were going to thank you, but...
But thank you. And Acharon Chaviv, a huge thank you to Rebecca and the banquet co-chairs for the countless hours spent to make this banquet the success it has been. Good night, everyone.